Hi everyone, this is PB here from the Home Automation Project. Today I'm going to show you how to set up a simple automation in Home Assistant using this Zigbee Aqara sensor as well as this brilliant smart plug which I'm going to connect to LED light. So let's get started. Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you a simple automation in Home Assistant using two smart devices. One is a Aqara motion sensor and the second device is going to be a LED light. I have connected the LED light using a smart plug, which is the brilliant smart plug, and this is the one here that you see. So I have this Aqara motion sensor, and as you can see, when I move this sensor, you will see the status here is detected, and if I keep it away for a bit, the motion should get cleared like so. And just to show you that the brilliant smart plug is also connected to this Home Assistant instance, when I switch this on, the LED light here should get switched on like this, and when I switch it off, the LED light is switched off. So now we have established that both the smart devices are connected to the same Home Assistant instance. One thing to note is that this motion sensor is a Zigbee motion sensor. So I have a Zigbee dongle plugged into my Home Assistant box, and that's how I'm able to connect to this. I will make a separate video on Zigbee devices and how to set up the Zigbee dongle and how to pair Zigbee devices, and also I will show some benefits of working with Zigbee devices. Coming back to this video, so I've got a Aqara Zigbee motion sensor here, which is also capable of a few other things, and I'm going to use the motion sensor capability to trigger this light on and off based on the automation that we're going to see now. So first thing to create an automation would be to go to settings, and then you can go to the section which is named as automations and scenes. So here, as you can see, there are a few options, and the one by default is automations area, and this is where we're going to create the automation. Just to give you a brief introduction to the UI here, there are four main menus here: automation, scenes, scripts, and blueprints. You can also see some pre-downloaded blueprints which come with your as default with your Home Assistant installation. These blueprints are basically nothing but community based skeleton code, so to say, which can get you started with simple tasks. You can download more blueprints on the internet by clicking on this button or by going to the Google and searching for Home Assistant blueprints. These are pretty useful for some of the complex operations. For example, my Z-Wave ring keypad, I use a blueprint because there are many functions of that keypad, and it is easier to use the blueprint than to write the entire code from scratch. It is though not a beginner's topic, so I would say you can avoid them for now, but in a later video I'm going to show you how to use the blueprints. Scripts are a bit more advanced because you need to access the backend editor and write the scripts in a code language. So again, something may not be needed from day one. The main purpose of scripts is to write reusable code. If you want to use a function across multiple automations and you don't want to repeat the same function lines in multiple automations, you could use scripts. However, with the latest features of Home Assistant, you can copy automations easily, and you can also copy specific sections or clauses within those automations, so that should make it pretty easy. And you would probably reserve scripts for more advanced tasks, which we can see in one of the later videos. Third is scenes. Scenes is pretty handy, and especially if you want to preserve the state of multiple entities and make a change to the state of multiple entities and return to this preserved state, that is probably the most appropriate use of scenes. For example, let's say if you have a set of colored bulbs across your house, and you want to send all those colored bulbs to a color of red when an event happens, but you don't know what their previous setting was. For example, one of them could be turned off, one of them could be turned on. Before you turned all of them on and set to red color, you could then use a scene to preserve the previous state of each of these bulbs, and once your task is complete, then you can return them to this previous scenario. You can combine multiple types of devices and entities in a scene, and it is pretty advanced but pretty useful. One of the scenes that I use in my house is mimicking a prison scene, which is pretty handy when I'm not at home in the evening, and there are multiple scenes that execute based on time, and that would be also an advanced automation, but it is a very interesting topic and probably something I will reserve for a later video. So coming back to the automations, it is a very simple UI and very intuitive UI. So let's go through the automation steps. I will not use any of the blueprints for this video, rather I will do a new automation from scratch. Click on create new automation, and you will be presented with this UI. So there are three parts to an automation: the when or the trigger. For example, when there's motion detected in this sensor, the then do or the action part, which is switching on this light or switching off the light, or any other action that you want to happen based on the trigger. And then there is the conditional ending portion. This could be a set of preconditions you want to be true or false before your action executes, even if the trigger occurs. So for example, a classic example would be condition of sunset or sunrise. If I want, as an example in this automation, let's say I want this I want the sensor, the motion sensor, to trigger the light state to on only if it is after sunset. So that optional precondition I can add here as one of the conditions. This is just an example. You can obviously add more complicated conditions if you want in the future. For this, for the purpose of this simple automation, I'm not going to use this section, but we can come back to this at some later stage. So let's start by adding a trigger. So to add a trigger, you can select a device, entity, time, location, and other triggers. So let me explain what a device entity is in the Home Assistant world. So device is nothing but a group of entities. As an example, this sensor, Zigbee sensor, is a device. Entity is the various attributes that this device, or the properties that device exposes, and you can control routines based on the state of each of these entities. As an example, this device, this Aqara motion sensor device, has got three entities. One is a temperature entity, one is a occupancy entity, and one is a motion entity, and each of these entities can have their own states, and you can set up an automation at the device level, or you can set up automation at entity level. Having the automation at entity level gives you more finer control. For this automation, we are going to use the device option. Let's click on device and then select the device. In my case, it is named as Aqara motion sensor, so I'll type and it gives me the option, and then you can see there are multiple triggers that this device exposes. The one we are after is motion sensors, motion started detecting motion, and you can optionally add a duration, which is kind of a delay. So for example, you want the light to be switched on only if someone is in the room for, let's say, more than 30 seconds or more than a minute. Then you can use this delay of 1 minute or 30 seconds here. I will leave this option blank for the purpose of this video. As I said, the optional condition, you can choose, for example, a time and location, and then I can choose a sun, and then you can say only when it is after sunset in this case, for example. However, for this simple automation, we are not going to use the option, so I'll just delete it. And the third part is the then do action. So under action, there are many actions under each category of devices that it exposes, and you can also search for more advanced actions under other actions. For this one, we will just do a device based action, and the device is our brilliant smart plug, and we want to turn the smart plug on. So there you go. Now you have a trigger and an action. Let's save this automation first, and I'll call it Aqara motion sensor triggers light, or rather switches on light, and I'll save it. Now that we have the automation, let's see. Let's go to the devices section and let's go to the Aqara device, Aqara motion sensor. As you can see, the motion is clear. If I make a movement now, hopefully this should trigger a motion, and it should also switch on the light because the automation isn't active now. So let's try it. So motion is detected and the light is switched on. Hooray! So our automation is working now. Now that we have this automation working, one thing to remember is we do not have a corresponding automation to switch this off, so this light is going to stay on forever. However, that is not an ideal situation. So let's go back and create another automation to switch off the light when motion clears. So let's go back to automation scenes, and I can go create an automation from scratch, but in this case I'm going to just use a handy feature of duplicating the existing automation, which brings in my devices, and I just need to switch the states. Here I will say when the motion sensor stops detecting motion, and then we're going to say turn off the brilliant smart plug, and I'm going to save this with Aqara motion sensor switches type of light, and save. Now that we have this automation in place, let's go back to our devices and Aqara motion sensor, and as you can see, motion is clear and the light is switched off. Let's try this one more time. Let's create a motion. It's detected and the light switches on. Now let's stay still for 10 seconds, which is the interval, and as you can see, once it's cleared, the light is switched off, and I moved again, hence the light switched on. Let's turn it around if you don't want it to keep switching on, and hopefully it will switch on after 10 seconds. There you go. So that's a simple automation for you, and how can you can use two devices to talk to each other using Home Assistant as your hub. The possibilities are endless. You can use many devices and can build a really complex automation. However, it might be more useful to build small atomic automations and then chain them together if you need, either via script or by using an automation within an automation, which is also a possibility. One final thing to note before I end this video, it's the UI under automation scenes. As you can see, you've got few options within this UI. The first one is that you can disable these automations quickly by using this toggle. Second thing to note here is the filters option, where you can filter automations based on the device or based on areas. For example, these two automations are based on the Aqara motion sensor, which is in the area of office. So if I select office and filter and apply the filter, then these are available. However, as an example, if I choose different filter where these two devices are not present, as you can see, those automations are not showing up. So these are pretty handy filters, and once you have a huge number of automations, you would find them pretty useful to use. The other option is the bulk option, or like a bulk select. So like select all or select none. You can select multiple automations in bulk, and you can perform actions such as move to category, add label or move to area. And also you can bulk enable or disable these automations, which is probably one of the most handy options here. To come out of this bulk selection, you can just click on close selection mode. To remove these filters on the left side, just click on the filters again. And the last option is to sort by name, area, category, last triggered or state. Out of this, sort by last triggered is probably one of the most used option for me. And this is also a column here, so you can just click on this column to sort either in ascending or in descending order. And also you can group them by category, area or state. I find it pretty useful to group them by state because I'm mostly looking at the active automations and I don't want to look at the inactive ones. However, grouping by area could also be a logical thing to do if you are focusing on automations in a specific room. So there you go, that will be all for this video. We'll dive into some of the more complex automations in one of our later videos. So that will be all for today's video. Hope you liked this video. See you in the next one. Till then, stay safe and stay connected.